They're two happy women bringing you inspiring stories, politics, pop culture, and lifestyle hacks, all with an eye to making our communities and our country a better place to live. It's the Happy Women Podcast with your hosts, Jen Horn and Katie Gorka.
Thanks for joining us and welcome to another episode of the Happy Women Podcast. I'm Jennifer Horn.
And I'm Katie Gorka.
And I am super excited to welcome in our guest this episode. That's because my day job is hosting the Morning Answer in Los Angeles on AM 870 and AM 590, The Answer. And so it only seems great that we bring in the host of the Morning Answer, Chicago edition from AM 560, The Answer. Amy Jacobson is here. She keeps Dan Proft in line, and the two of them rule the mornings in Chicago. And Amy, thanks so much for being with us. So great to see you.
Oh, Jen and Katie, it's a pleasure. And there's not a lot of women in Salem broadcasting, so we got to stick together.
Today. Isn't that nice? Now, you can give her a follow on social media at Amy Jacobson. And Amy, we want you to come back when you have more time to spread out. Really tell us your story, because I think you have worked in the past with some friends of mine as well. So we want to hear your history. But of course, today, the big news, you're in Chicago. The DNC is in Chicago. And we don't want to give away any secrets, but you just told us you're on your way to go check out. You're going to scope out the free abortion, free vasectomy Planned Parenthood clinic, which is so wild, in front of the DNC. I used to go to conventions and they'd give you a tote bag, but these Democrats are crazy. So what is going on in front of this convention this week?
Well, they're less than a half mile from the convention, and you had to sign up online. All the slots are sold out for yesterday and today to get a vasectomy and to get what they call a medicated abortion. 25 medicated abortions between yesterday and today. And they gave 10 vasectomies yesterday, and they're giving 10 more today. And then when you leave, you can get a free hot dog from the Wiener Circle if you get a vasectomy. That's a well-known restaurant or a fast food place here in Chicago. So you can't make this stuff up. It seems so barbaric, and then they try and put a funny spin on it. And, and we were all trying.
These are life-changing choices that people are making, and they want to hand you a hot dog on the way out. I mean, it's crazy.
And there's a taco truck, too. Once you leave, there's a taco. I'm not kidding you, literally right across. Now, yesterday, we were all trying to find, me and a reporter from News Nation, a bunch of us were trying to find this truck. And I finally got the location of it. And I just want to go over there and see, who's taking part of this, why, and just get more information.
I'd love to know what else you're seeing, though. So, here we're both miles away from you, right? Because I'm on the East Coast. Jen's on the West Coast. I'm seeing little bits and bobs. We heard about 30,000 protesters were expected, but maybe only about 5,000 shown up. Have you been around the protesters at all?
Oh, yes, I have. I was with them yesterday for a few hours, and with the police officers that were babysitting the protesters to make sure they don't get out of line. I'd say they're about 5,000. They were supposed to start their march at noon, and they didn't get all organized until about 3:45. And then at about 5 o'clock, the anarchists, because you have so many different groups of people with all their, left agendas, that it's hard to decipher who's who. But the more extreme group, I think they're Antifa, but I'm not 100% sure. They took down 3 gates. And because they tried to infiltrate the north side of the United Center. So they weren't successful, and our police stopped them. But, you've got Gays for Gaza. You've got people that are saying, come on.
I'd love to see them go protest in Gaza, because, Gays for Gaza last about 4 seconds. It's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. These signs that they're making are very colorful. Then you have the LGBTQ, because they don't think they have enough rights in the state of Illinois. They want Governor Pritzker to give them more. And I said, well, what more do you want? And they said, we want more locker room access. We want more rights for trans to be in women's sports. Mm-hmm. So everyone's got their own little agendas. And then they tried to set up an encampment last night at about 5 o'clock. And the police took that down right away because they didn't want it to turn into a college campus.
I saw some walking abortion pills too from Sunday.
Yes.
I think that was a pre-show. But, Amy, I think it's very interesting the hypocrisy that is going on with this DNC. First of all, to keep people out of the convention area, they are using a wall, which we know Democrats are not a big fan of when Republicans like walls and fences. They're using ID to let people into the convention. You have to have an ID. They don't like that at the voting booth. There's lots of hypocrisy. Peaceful protest is okay unless you're within a few hundred feet of the convention center. What other hypocritical things are we seeing from this Democrat Party as they try to have this convention and make it look the way it should to the American people?
Well, one thing that they're doing, that my friend lives in the Gold Coast, and out of the blue, they just put up this steel fence around any fancy hotel where any Democrats are staying or big names. They fence off the area with this 8-foot-high steel wall. And to get into your house or your apartment or your condo, you have to show your ID to get in. But they didn't warn people about that, because people that I know, they would have taken a vacation. They would have stayed with friends. It's a big inconvenience. So that's hypocritical, because you can't show an ID to vote, but yet you can show an ID to get to your house. But they should have communicated better with people to let them know, hey, this is what we're going to be doing. The peninsula's surrounded. There's another fancy hotel on Chestnut that's surrounded. And so I don't think that that's, what people in Chicago had planned. Also, a lot of businesses are boarded up. I counted 18 yesterday from the Mag Mile area all the way to the South Loop, because we don't know if there's a stand down order like there was during George Floyd riots, when police were told to stand down and everybody got their businesses looted. So I have a friend who has a business on Oak Street. She just completely boarded up and shut down for the week. So she's losing tens of thousands of dollars of business in this 1 week. So that's hypocritical as well, I think.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you also have to look at all this within the context of Chicago's broader picture, right? I mean, Chicago has not been on a good path for a long time. I think this past weekend alone, 30 shootings, 5 murders. If I'm not mistaken, Chicago has the #1 number of murders in the country. It's had a soft on crime approach for years now. So to see this happening as well. So I just have to wonder, how do you even survive there as a conservative? What is it even like to live in Chicago when this is going on?
Well, those are the shootings that they told you about. We had a shooting on my street on Sunday morning at 5:15. A man was shot in the head, 4 doors down from our house. Okay.
Wow.
I keep calling News Affairs. It's not even recorded, but yet I cleaned up the blood on the street. And I talked to the detective that was out there, and I said, what's going on? Was this a gang shooting? Is either a road rage or a gang shooting? And he was shot in the back of the head. Last I checked, he's still on life support, but he's not even registered as a shooting from this weekend. So I think they're fibbing about the numbers to make it look good, to make it look safe, when that's a bunch of bull jive. So I'm going to stay on that. I know the victim's 40 years old. I know he doesn't live on our street, but still he lost his life. And it's just so upsetting. I've lived here. I grew up here, but I was a reporter, so I lived in 7 states, and then I came back, and it keeps getting worse and worse. And just when you think, okay, that's the last straw, this might be the last straw. And everybody is rattled on my block because, and most of them are liberals, and there's some moderate Democrats, but they just, keep thinking, oh, it won't happen here, it won't happen here. It's happening here. It's happening in all 77 neighborhoods of the city of Chicago.
It's really troubling. And, I think there are a lot of correlations between my home in Los Angeles, your home in Chicago. And Amy, one of the things I noticed is that we both have homeless issues going on in your city and in mine. So I'm very curious because,
not this week. Not this week.
That's what I'm asking. Okay.
No.
So the Olympics are coming in 2028. Mayor Karen Bass, who's at the DNC, she was there last night in the crowd, says, we're not going to bus anybody anywhere. Well, what are you going to do? San Francisco cleaned up the city when President Xi came in. Did Chicago do the same thing? Did they hide the homeless? Where did they go?
Yeah, they took all the homeless to a hotel on Chestnut Avenue. It used to be a fancy hotel, and they get to stay there for 90 days. They cleaned up this huge homeless encampment on Dan Ryan and Roosevelt. All the illegals that are here, I have a shelter by my house. They're locked inside. There's no loitering signs.
Wow.
So I don't know if they're locked inside, but they've been encouraged to stay inside. The other place where we had people was at the Inn of Chicago, which is on Magnificent Mile. And if you follow me on Twitter, I tweeted out video of that place yesterday. It's all cleaned up. There's no kids out there. There's nobody selling anything. There's nobody drinking beer or smoking anything. It's crazy what they did to make it look good. They put a Band-Aid on the city to show the world, because everybody's watching, that we don't have those problems, but we have those problems. By the way, let me ask you.
They can fix it, right? They can fix it. They just don't want to.
Exactly. And so the encampments in LA and San Francisco that they're cleaning up, was that for the Olympics, or is that for the fact that Kamala Harris is from California?
Well, there's a couple of things actually for California. So the Olympics are coming in 4 years, and Karen Bass just said that we're not going to be shipping. She's not going to bus away homeless people. So she's going to have to figure it out, because our homeless population is insane right now, and they're doing nothing. Gavin Newsom came out 2 weeks ago because he wants to run for president. I really believe he's voting for President Trump, because it would be better for him to be a thorn in President Trump's side for 2 years and then run clean for president in 4 years after he's done governing or lack of governing California. But he's come out and all of a sudden decided that he wants to clean up the state. And it's because it's a huge albatross around the neck of not just Gavin Newsom, but Kamala Harris. So he's now demanding counties go in and start cleaning up after all these years, after years of just letting it fester. And LA County, which is so liberal, they're going to fight Gavin Newsom and say they don't want to clean it up. So the LA County Board of Supervisors is saying, no, it's not compassionate to clean up Los Angeles. So it's going to be a battle. We'll see.
Oh, I think that, one of the things that we're hearing, and we're going to hear a lot more of at the convention, are basically socialist policies, ways that the government can supposedly spend us out of our problems. So I was particularly interested to see, coming out of Chicago, they've got this idea that they're going to end food inequity by opening 3 city-owned grocery stores at a cost of $27 million. I mean, really?
I don't even know where they're going to get the money, because we're spending billions a year on illegals, and we have about 45,000 so far. But yeah, they're called, we call them Gimme That grocery stores. Dan and I on our morning show, we did a whole half hour of what should these grocery stores be. But this is going to create food lines, food insecurities, and it's going to be just a catastrophic disaster, I think, for our city and for our county. But their point of contention is, well, we had Whole Foods here, but Whole Foods closed. And they did. But Whole Foods closed because they kept getting robbed. People would walk in and take whatever they want and then walk out. So Whole Foods closed, Aldi's closed in Inglewood. So I know that's one of the locations where he wants to set up these grocery stores, but they are set on their socialist policies, and they are stubborn and will not listen to anybody that has different ideas.
It's interesting because that's the idea that Kamala Harris is pushing, right? Her big policy is about regulating grocery stores, which have a profit margin of what, 1%, 1.5%. It's not like they're making huge amounts of money to begin with. And now you're going to get the government involved. I mean, this is a socialist manifesto being rolled out. And these ideas are not new, I'm sure, to you, Amy, because they're tried in your city, just like they're tried in my state. They try these very crazy leftist policies and they don't work. So if you had a warning or a lesson that we could take from something that's gone on in Chicago that we could put out to people who are really, truly still maybe on the fence between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, what are some of those lessons?
Well, what I always tell people, because, people secretly, I don't know if this happens to you, but they'll come up to me at a party or at a game or at the gym and say, I'm a conservative or I'm with you. And I said, we can talk about it. We don't have to whisper. Because I used to be, I'm a former Democrat myself. I call myself a recovering Democrat. And I just say, forget about the man, forget about the culture you want. Because we have people panhandling on almost every street corner. Like, you want that? You want your hard-earned tax dollars to go to feed them when you need help for your family. I know a lot of people in the Black community were very disenchanted with the Democratic Party and with Brandon Johnson because he gave them spaces that they thought they should have. And they gave them, money and food and clothing and, whatever they wanted, he gave to them, medical care, everything. And they thought, those are our tax dollars. You should help our community first. You should help Americans first. So I always tell people that you're choosing for a way of life for your kids.
All right. Well, I know that you have to dash off because you're going to check out the mobile abortion / vasectomy clinic that's outside the Democratic National Convention. But thank you so much for coming on. We'd love to have you back, hear more about what you're seeing.
Oh, I'd love to come anytime. Just let me know.
Bring ice packs maybe or something. I don't know. Amy Jacobson, thank you so much for being with us. She is co-host of The Morning Answer, AM 560, The Answer in Chicago. Give her a follow at Amy Jacobson. Thanks so much, Amy, for your coverage. We'll check back in with you.
Okay. God bless. Take care.
Thank you. Be careful out there.
Volatility and uncertainty are everywhere we turn. Many Americans have grown increasingly tired of the reckless fiscal spending, mounting national debt, and the looming threat to the dollar. With never-ending political and global conflicts, Americans are looking for a way out of the fragile paper system and craving a trustworthy asset to help protect their savings. That's why they turn to gold. Specifically, a gold IRA from Augusta Precious Metals. If you have over $100,000 in a retirement account, it's time you learned about the potential benefits of a gold IRA from Augusta Precious Metals. Augusta Precious Metals is a world-class organization that prides itself on top-notch service. Ready to learn more? Get your free guide on gold IRAs today by calling 855-222-6994. Volatility is everywhere. Now is the time to take control of your retirement to secure a brighter financial future with Augusta Precious Metals. Call them at 855-222-6994 today.
That was very fun to check in, at least what things are like in Chicago. I do think it's interesting, these big blue cities, Katie, they like clean house. It's like your mother-in-law is coming over and they're shoving everything in the closet to try to make their city look like everything's doing great. And I was watching Lawrence Jones was talking to Mayor Pete Buttigieg, Secretary of Transportation. The guy I still contend is the worst Secretary of Transportation we've ever had. I mean, we've had flight groundings and train derailments and hacks and all kinds of terrible things under Mayor Pete. But they were talking about how big blue cities like seem to be failing. And he contends that they are not, that that's just a right-wing talking point. And as someone who lives in a blue city and sees this every single day, and you live in a pretty blue state as well, it's not just right-wing talking points. We're talking about Chicago. You brought up with Amy the violence that happens every single weekend. And the answer that from Mayor Pete was that, well, we need gun control. Well, they have gun control in Chicago, and that violence is still happening. People are still suffering at the grocery store. People are living and dying on the streets. These are blue policies in blue cities and blue states that are only run by Democrats. And it's really hard to make the argument, I think, when you've got the Democrat convention going on in these places, that more of this is going to help the rest of the country. It stands, I think, in sharp contrast with what Democrats are trying to sell this week.
So Chicago hasn't had a Republican mayor in, I think, around 100 years.
Long time.
Yep. And they are now the murder capital of the United States. Just this past weekend alone, 30 shot, 5 killed. I think they're getting upwards close to 400 murders so far this year. And as Amy was pointed out, those are just the ones that are being reported. What else is going on that's not even being reported? Yet I just don't understand why people think the answer is to keep throwing money at it. I was absolutely appalled to read about this plan of, city-owned grocery stores. State-owned anything never works. And at the same time, thinking about Kamala Harris's proposal that we make available grants of $25,000 so that people can have a down payment on their home. And who decides who gets that? It's incredible the way they want to spend their way, the way they think that they can spend their way out of any problem.
Absolutely. And that's why it's really important to get people to turn out. This election is going to come down to just tens of thousands of votes. I'm sure of it. Yes, Democrats are in a better position than they were a month ago because they have someone with a pulse who is now running. Do I believe for a second all of the momentum that's being ginned up by the mainstream news media, the Hollywood types, and the Democrat elites? No, I don't think that people are 100% sold yet on Kamala Harris, but I do think it is going to be closer. And by the way, I think it was always going to be close. This is just where we are in politics right now. People would vote for a rock because Trump hatred is that real. So what do? Well, we have to figure out how to get the momentum. We have to figure out how to turn out our own voters and try to pick up some groups that we weren't able to pick up before. That means minority groups. That means young people, maybe women. We can go through and try to identify those places and really make sure that President Trump has what he needs in the states he needs to win. And we know the swing states. We know the swing states are Arizona and Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, to some extent, and Georgia. It seems that Kamala Harris thinks that she has multiple paths to victory. She was, and this is why I think she chose, one of the reasons she chose Tim Walz is I think she thought her only way to victory was through Pennsylvania and through Wisconsin and, Michigan, and that Trump had the Sun Belt won. But it was revealed this week that she also thinks that the Sun Belt is in play, that there are pathways with Arizona and Nevada and Georgia. In any case, I've talked to you before. You know my mom. My mom is absolutely lovely. She goes to all of my events, but she is a hardcore Democrat. And so I happened to call her and check in. And I said, what are you doing? She goes, filling out my postcards. And I said, what postcards? Like, you haven't been anywhere, right? You're not sending me postcards. And she goes, oh, I'm doing my Kamala Harris postcards. And I went, oh, for crying out loud. Now, you and I talk about getting more involved in elections and all of this. And I have done this. Like, in the past years, I've made phone calls. I've walked precincts. I've done these types of things. So when she said she was filling out postcards, I said, all right, today's the day. I tell people to go to these websites. I tell people to get involved. Here's the day where the girl who has no time to do anything is going to figure out how to find a way to touch people, right, in the states where it matters. Because I really believe that Trump's going to win Wisconsin. I know it may be a pipe dream. I feel really good about it. I think if he wins Pennsylvania, this thing is over. So for me, in my heart, I want to focus on Pennsylvania. I want to focus on Wisconsin. Yes, the other states matter too. So I start signing up on all the places we tell people to go, right? I go to my GOP. I was already signed up there. Haven't been contacted by the California GOP yet. Watching you guys. I went to the RNC. I signed up for Trump Force, which was absolutely fun. You and I had talked about this before. And I went to Scott Pressler's site. I went to the Early Vote Action website as well. And I was really impressed with Trump Force and with Scott Pressler's organization. So far, of all the places I've signed up, they make it the easiest for people who want to get involved with this process. So I ordered postcards from Amazon. For like $10, you can get, I think, 100 postcards. They've got the American flag on them. And if you go to Scott Pressler's website, you can download his app, Early Vote Action. And when you're ready to start writing postcards, they give you the address. They tell you what to write. Your donation is basically the stamp and the postcard. Mm-hmm. And you fill these out and you're going to mail them to people in Pennsylvania. And once you mail your postcard, you click the button so that you can mark it as someone who's received a postcard. You take a picture of it. Away you go. You dump it into the mail. And this becomes your donation and your work. I thought that was pretty easy. The app is very easy to use and it's very targeted for Pennsylvania, although it gives you access to voters near you, so you can go and knock on doors in your own neighborhood, or you can go and select certain states. It's a really pretty good website, considering that this is the power of really like one person and his group around him. Trump Force, however, has been, I think, also very incredible. So when you sign up, they ask you if you want to do a training. And truly, I did it kind of just to see what their training is like, seeing what they're doing. And it's about a half an hour. It's very basic. For somebody who's practiced a little bit, you could do it in about 5-10 minutes, but it's someone from the RNC who goes through how their caller software works. And once you create a login, you can go in through that website and you can make calls and you can click that you made the call. It gives you a script as to what to say and you start making your way through. And in this one, you can choose the state that you want to go to. Now, it's always going to be targeted. Like, it'd be a waste of time for me to call people in my state of California. But let's say I want to stay in my time zone. So I call people in Nevada and ask them about what they're voting, how they're voting, and if they're going to vote early and all of this. And it gives you the whole script and you send that off and you're on your way and you click it. And these are really easy, great. And I know you've seen this too. So I thought it was worth talking about. Really great, easy to use websites for people to do if you have just a little bit of time. You don't have to commit 3 hours. You can do 30 minutes. And what I was thinking is I commute a lot. So while I'm in my car, if I have some time, I could be making some phone calls as I travel around.
I love that.
I don't have a lot of time to carve out, but I was like, hey, when I'm in the car, maybe this is my chance and I can put that time to work. I think for a lot of people, maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're on a treadmill or you're taking a walk outside, make a couple of calls while you go. Or if you're sitting in the carpool line, write out a couple of postcards. Even if it's 3 people, it's 3 more people than would have been contacted before. And I just think now with technology, and this is, I guess, the point, it's easier than ever for people to get involved with the process. It's not as hard as it used to be. When I was volunteering back in 2000 and 2004 and young and out there walking, it was hard. You had to like trudge back and forth and look at paper lists and all of this. Yeah, all of this technology, it follows you. And I highly recommend both of those things, finding out what's local for you, election integrity projects or things. I just think there's really no excuse for any of us not to be more involved, because it is going to be a fight and it's going to be a couple of thousand votes in a couple of different precincts that are going to make the difference.
And I think, unfortunately, too many people feel that their individual effort won't make a difference. But it's just so not true. So you know that we helped organize a big postcard writing campaign here for our local election in Virginia this last fall. And what was great about it, we were able to work with another organization that was able to then go in afterwards and assess whether our postcards made any difference. So these were handwritten postcards, and they tested some different groups. And so they found amongst sort of normal voters that receiving a handwritten postcard brought about a 4 to 7% bump in turnout. But what's really interesting is they also did a test batch with a group of what are called low propensity voters. And that's who the Trump administration is targeting. They found amongst low propensity voters, receiving a postcard gave us a 40% bump in turnout. So part of the problem that we're facing is that at best, we might get 80% turnout in this election. That means that there are one for every 4 Republicans that's turning out to vote, there is another one that shares our values, but they're not voting. And the only thing that's going to nudge them to action is hearing from one of us, pleading with them, encouraging them, saying you have to go vote.
And I think they're also, I think, targeting what's really great about what this voter information and, again, technology and being able to see in real time what's working and what's not. Not only are you going after Republicans who might need a little extra nudging, but you're going after those independents and even the soft Democrats who are like, ooh, the policies are a little bit, and you might pick up these extra people. And that makes a huge difference. We need to get Trump winning with Black men. We need to get him winning with Latino voters, and we need to get him winning with young people. And there's an opportunity in all of those different departments for him to actually make some progress. And you don't even have to win those groups outright. You just have to do better than you did before, and you win this election. And I think it's really interesting with all the polling that they're showing for Kamala Harris, and they're trying to drive the momentum, saying that she's killing it in the polls. If you look at these polls that are coming out recently, they are heavily skewed Democrat. They're like Democrat plus 12 polls where they ask more Democrats to get the desired result. And if you find the one group that you're not hearing anything from, it's crickets. Go dig around. Anybody listening to this podcast, Google Latino voters and do latest polling, Trump versus Harris. He's winning with Latino voters. And that's why they will not talk about it on the mainstream news media, because they are upset that this vote that they thought, this voting bloc that they thought was theirs and that belonged to them, it has shifted. And in every poll that I've seen, specifically with Latino voters in this country, in the swing states and beyond, Trump is winning by 6 points to Kamala Harris. That is huge, considering he's not just doing better, he's actually beating Kamala Harris. It's a big change.
I want to say one last thing about this, because I've had some interesting encounters over the last couple of weeks. The other reason I think each one of us has a role to play is because not only does it make a huge difference to reach another voter with some sort of personal contact, whether it's a door knock, a postcard, a phone call, a text, any of those things can make a real difference. But the other thing is, I think all of us have a role to play with the people that are in our circles, connecting with people. Because what I have found, yes, there are some super, super mobilized people who will, just because they really care about it, they will find a way to volunteer. But a lot of people don't. It feels like there's kind of a hurdle. And I mean, I'll just give you a perfect example. I was speaking a couple of weeks ago, and I met two 22-year-olds, two guys, 22 years old, who are really upset about what's happening in the country and really want to support President Trump. And they have not been engaged before. And I really wanted I was so excited, and I wanted them to reach out to me, and I didn't hear from them. And then one of them emailed me yesterday, and he said he and his friend have decided that they are going to become election officers. What did they do? And I was able to connect them and send them to the right place. Now, would they have done it without that personal connection? I'm not so sure they would, because it seems, if you've never done it before, you don't know how to do it. Right. Yeah. It is daunting. And you think, well, who am I to be an election officer? Or it's also called an election judge. But we need people to just flood these volunteer positions and get involved. And, if you are already involved, find ways to encourage others. This is how we're going to win. This is how we're going to take back our country.
Yeah. So I have to send out more postcards of my mom now. So if anybody wants to help me. And she had a stack of them, Katie, a stack of postcards.
Oh my gosh.
So get involved, do what you can. And again, I get it. You get it. We have crazy schedules, but you have made it a priority to put this first, or to at least maybe not first, but put it high up on your list. And I think we can all find a few minutes to bring in 1, 2, 3, 5 people into our tent as well. So we hope you are enjoying this podcast. We hope you are getting involved. You can always comment. Let us know what you're thinking. 5-star reviews are very appreciated. Make sure you check out SalemPodcastNetwork.com so you can find our links to our channels on YouTube and Rumble, all the different platforms where our podcast is carried. Please tell a friend and share it if you can. We always appreciate that. Get Katie's book. It's called Next Gen Marxism. You can find that wherever you get your books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever that may be. And you can check out her website as well, katiegorka.org. Search her out on Facebook. Search for Catherine Gorka. On Twitter as well, Gorka Katie. That's her handle. And you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Jennifer Horn Radio, and on Truth and X at Jennifer Horn. Thanks so much for joining us. It's another episode of the Happy Women Podcast.